Hey, what's going on, everyone, and welcome to the Deceptilab. This your boy Freeze with the weekly live stream, and today we're going to take a look at a few different things. And so, there've been some changes in playtest to HQ18. We're going to talk about that, and I actually spent a lot of time today just working on just trying to come up with some defensive strategies. So we'll look at that, and we will also look at this week. We actually got some gameplay for where we're at with Mindwipe and Cosmos. So we'll take a look at what we got so far. I'll tell you what I think we should do, and if you guys got ideas, can feel free to add in. And then, of course, today Space Ape announced that there's going to be a 5-star vote going tomorrow. So we got to go through that whole thing. And you know how we do in the lab, we go in there and talk about uh, what the good reasons are to pick bots, stuff like that. I don't usually make predictions, but I'll go in there and talk about what I would like to see come out of the batch. And I will say, like, it's starting to look kind of thin in regards to what bots are out there that are actually viable um, for just every league. So we'll talk about that a little bit. But before we do, let's go ahead and flip over to this week's newsletter. And let's see. Let me get the newsletter. Gotta interact with it. All right. So this week's event is called Countermeasures. It's week 1 of the new saga. We just had the endurance this past weekend, and it's going to be an individual totalizer. So I always like the first week individual totalizer because they just go for specific crystals for certain bots. This time it's medics, with there not being as many medics in the game per faction. Gives you good opportunities to try to just go build up your medics and make sure you hit that event and get all of those additional shards so that you can try to work towards your upgrades for your ranks. They got a War for Cybertron skin cool, 2.5k to 4-star shards and 7.5k to 3-star shards, 4 of the 500k Troop XP items, 350 Spark, and 2 million of Alloy and 2 million of Energon. So pretty nice, relaxing event. 10k. Typical battle zones, and like I already mentioned briefly earlier, the 5-star vote is coming. I see Candyman said medic crystals and yawns. Yeah, I just like anytime I get an opportunity to just get more of the character shards, I like those opportunities. And I told Space Ape a while ago that if you go in a rotation with different bot classes and stuff like that, then you will give everybody a chance to get some of those shards and not have to use their 5-star shards. I told them that before 5-star shard conversion was a thing, but um, they've been rolling with it, and I think it's been going pretty well. And they keep it on the smaller events, so it's not you don't get crazy amounts of character shards, so it's good for the game economy as well. All right, so let's see, 5-star vote tomorrow, so that should pop up on Discord. If you're not on Transformers Earth Wars Discord, make sure you do that. And then we got the official content creators, Engineer Horse, myself, Soldier, and of course Sunstreak Awaza. Make sure you check out all their channels and all of the channels of the unofficial content creators as well. Lots of guys out here making good content. Some of them in the chat with us today. I'll shout them out here momentarily. So I saw a question from Sunstrike asking about the saga schedule. They ain't built it yet, and it's pretty common. They know they can put together a pretty easy event for the excuse me, for the first one. So a lot of times they don't always put out the entire schedule right away. Now I will say this: when we were talking about Mindwipe in playtest, one of the things Dale was saying was that he wanted to try to shoot for getting this bot out in about 2 weeks. Um, just getting it signed off. I imagine, so that we can go get that 5-star event going. I think that's going to be the determining factor, is if we can get this bot signed off. Now, that's not coming from Space Ape. That's just my speculation. But, we'll see how the Mindwipe and Cosmos thing goes, and then that drives uh, a full saga schedule. Community corner. So we got we got War Peace, Wrath, and Genji. We got some nice toys. I see they got the different versions of Optimus down there. Look like that's Run Amok there. That's a nice little picture down there too. I like that. Alright, so Space Ape has been working heavy on the bug fixes and improvements. So with Blot and Rook, so I didn't realize this because I'm not an Autobot, but so Rook is now going to deal with some acid damage. So that's going to be a fix that you should see tomorrow on Thursday. Um, Metal Hawk is removed from the aerial class bot, so I guess they had a visual when they were showing him as an aerial bot, but he's not part of Superion, so they removed that. Let's see, Metal Hawk and Bomb Burst. So they've allowed both of these bots to be able to equip Trench Foot and Caliburst. The Star Saber and the Prima Saber. So they actually got the colors backwards. I didn't catch that until just now, but and somebody actually asked me about this after I did a live stream about the new weapons, but that when you use the Star Saber or the Prima Saber, you're not supposed to be able to heal decoys. And it was doing that. I and when we were in testing, I didn't see it, but when somebody pointed it out to me, it was doing that. But I know that that wasn't supposed to be the case because we spoke about it. So anyway, that's going to be fixed. They're not going to be healing the decoys. As you know, they only get that one Megatron or Optimus Prime decoy, so that's being fixed. Bomb Burst, they had a problem where they couldn't equip. He couldn't equip ranged combats for some players. Now I got the 3-star over the weekend, and I was able to equip them, but I know I did get reports from other players that they could not. So that's been fixed. Grimlock and Razor Claw, both passes are now fire, and they been doing a lot of tooltip changes. So they gonna tell you when it procs in the tooltip change. Um, they increase their shield and max health increase will be in line with other warriors. So I know I did get some questions about it. I didn't get a chance to look at all this stuff earlier today when they was talking about tooltip changes. Um, but if give me a reminder, I'll go in there and take a peek. And I know the biggest concern was with pipes and headstrong. So ability 1 through 10 was doing a area of effect splash. That's not supposed to be the case. That's supposed to be an ability 11 thing. So that's been fixed. Let's see. But they actually increased the area of effect too for the ability 11. So that should calm any of the any of the backlash for when anybody that is looking at this change. It's not a nerf. It was never supposed to be doing that. It wasn't in the tooltip, and they've added some clarification for the tooltip. They fixed some of the visual effects, and they increased the damage done. Yeah, and I actually saw this in playtest yesterday. They were actually doing less damage than the tooltip stated, so that's going to be interesting because like if you were on the stream last week, I was doing Unicron League data, and obviously Pipes and Headstrong were second, and usage rate behind Minerva and Flatline. So we'll see how that goes. Huffer and Lockdown, they had some problems with the targeting in their turrets. That's been fixed, and they also fixed the turret receiving damage. It's untargetable. That was always the intent. So that's been fixed. Well, not always. Since they did the legacy rework, that was the intent. So that's been fixed. They also are clarifying what damage absorption is, and that's actually been a lot of talk about that over the last few months in playtest about the difference between damage absorption and and like reflection. There's been a lot of talk about that. So the warriors to get their health boost. So most of them getting the 80% health boost. That health boost is not counted by FFD, and then the absorption shield. The shields obviously are counted by FFD, and yeah, they updated the colors and everything for health. Lots of tooltip stuff, and they got a few other warrior tooltips. So as we go around, we can take a look. Alright, Space Ape will be streaming again on the 16th, so make sure you make that. And that's all the news for this week. So let's flip over to the chat, see what we got in there. Alright, let me scroll back up to the top. And I do know, man, I got so many comments in here. That some of them disappeared. So let's see. I said I do know mercenary terrorists first. I'm just gonna start from where I can see. So if I miss anybody, I apologize in advance. But we got yeah, good friend, moderator, and content creator, the Mercenary Terror. Thanks for joining, as well as another good friend, moderator, and content creator, and Big Blade 297. Thanks for joining, buddy. Let's see what else we got. Esclo Hasi, another good friend and one of my members. Thanks for joining. Kristen Jones is with us again. Thanks for joining, Kristen. My very first member and good friend Joker is in the chat. Thanks for joining, Joker. We got Mario Zambiano is with us again. Thanks for joining, Mario. And yes, I will try to make a point to go in there and show you. As I go through the Warriors, I'll try to go look at the tooltip changes, see if I notice anything different. I said it was one of those things I really kind of wish they would have told us, hey, we're changing, and then the exact thing they're changing. But yeah. And we got some folks in here talking about the votes already and who they want to vote for. So that's good because it's starting to get thin, like I said earlier. So definitely want to see how that turns out for that 5-star vote. We got Soundwave joining us today. Thank you for joining Soundwave, and thanks for joining the server also. So you got any questions, you know where to reach me at now. Let's see. We got my good friend Daddy Pig is in there with us. Thanks for joining, Daddy Pig. Let's see. Highly Classified is with us again. Thanks for joining, Highly Classified. And Sunstrike, as I mentioned, is in here with us again. Thanks for joining. And that's a good point. So my good friend Candyman is in here, one of my Alliance family mates and one of my members. And he says when Cosmos won the vote for retooling, didn't Power Glide come in second? I can't remember who was in second. I think you're right. So we'll see how it goes. I will say this: a lot of times when you see a bot come in second in one of the votes, Space Ape, you lately they have a tendency to try to go in and add that bot in the vote. Now I will say this, and I haven't spoken to them about this, but I think in regards to us trying to go get more 5-star combiners and stuff like that, um, first off, I don't know if they're gonna do more 5-star combiners since we still gotta wait for Ruination and God Neptune. I think that does play a factor though. I think that when you're trying to go pick certain 5-stars, and because there's a disparity between the Autobot side and the Decepticon side, that you might be able to force certain bots to go into batches so that they can be even. So we'll talk about that a little bit more later on. We got Nemesis Enforcer with us again. Thanks for joining them. And Candyman says, why can't Bomb Burst equip Singe? Combat's air class only. That should be fixed tomorrow. Yeah, Nemesis Enforcer says he gets 2 Megatron decoys. We're talking about with the Dark Star Saber and the Primer Saber. Um, yeah, it's not supposed to do that. And somebody asked me about that earlier as well, but it's not supposed to do that. So I'm pretty sure Space Ape already knows about that one. So we'll see. Escloasi said, "Don't tell." Oh, wait a minute. If you deploy your combiner when your bots come back, the Saber will summon a second decoy. But don't tell the apes. There's always a lot of stuff that goes wrong when we're talking about combiners. And I mean, for example, like the whole thing with like junk heap and Wreckgar and losing the ability that you use. It's they gotta figure something out with that stuff. So sound Soundwave asked about top outpost bots. We're gonna talk about outpost bots a little bit today. So just hang in there for a minute. Big Blade says so. Pipe needs SA11. So here's the thing with, and actually, let me go over to the main screen, and we'll take a look at. I keep clicking on the wrong thing. We'll take a look at my Headstrong that I got up here, and we'll actually look at what the tooltip says. Because so what's still going to happen is you are still going to have anything that's going in a line. You're going to still have acid. So that's what it's supposed to be doing. It's supposed to have acid in a line, but not in an area in the AOE. So that's really going to be the main change. When you get to ability 11, then it's supposed to have area of effect because it's part of the ability 11. And you can actually see how they change some of the colors, like the light green they got in there for the health, and then they got the 80% for the shielding. They got a even lighter green for acid. So they just kind of picked around with the colors a little bit. They just tell you everything that it does, which honestly it kind of points out just how good Pipes and Headstrong really are, because they just got like a little bit of everything. So and it's getting an ability bump. So um, well, a damage bump because the damage wasn't working properly. King, my playtest buddy, King Grimlock joins, says 5 bucks for the Scepter Dog. Yeah, you guys probably saw my post on my community tab. But the Scepter Dog just turned 5 on Sunday. So I had a good time, and I was out of town, and my flight actually got delayed trying to get back to him to hang out with him for his birthday. But I got there at a decent time. I got back about 4:30, 5 o'clock, and took him out to get ice cream. So all right, and dude, I'm gonna keep it a band with you, Candy Man. I just noticed Delusion's ability 11 too, so I was like, I didn't know if I had missed something in the newsletter or something like that. But yeah, I just upgraded mine today. All right, so let's talk a little bit about what we've been working on for HQ 18 Phase 3. So I was just doing some designing and stuff earlier today when just trying to just play around with some of the HQ18 stuff a little bit more. Like I had tested everything already, but we got some stuff up here that we just now got into testing. And so one of the things we got is this waterproof dome. Now, other people were saying, like some of my Autobot play testers were saying this thing worked great. It didn't actually work for me, so I'm not gonna like show it in action. But this is where we're at right now. Like, we just got these this morning, and you can kind of look at the range and everything, and you can actually see the tooltip, which I'll move my cursor out of the way so you can see it. And the more and more I think about this, the less I like it, because it's just like, well, it's two things. The first thing is I don't really like build bots being like one of the primary ways of handling counters. Like I want different ways to make counters to different attacks. And so for me, this just screams, I'm just trying to stop God Neptune. I'm just trying to stop Ruination. Like they're tearing my base apart, and I do get the necessity, especially in lower leagues. Um, but my issue is this, and I'm actually going to go into my combiner tab real quick. Why I don't think this is going to work. So if I go into my lab, I say a tab, but lab, and we go over here to God Neptune. So they're trying to stop this guy right here, right? The tidal wave, and then a little bit of, and then the additional that you get with the God Sting. Problem is this: you still got this doing, dude. Honestly, this thing does a lot of damage, and does a lot of damage in a line for that type of ability. It has that 4-star ability with the God Splitter. So a lot of people might use the 2 and the 3-star ability. The 4-star ability is really powerful. So if when you go back and you go look at this, I'm only saying this because when you look at Waterproof Dome and it's supposed to be that Billbot's supposed to be immune to water damage, well, you just use the other ability. Now it works in a line, so it's not going to have like a circular area of effect, but problem solved if you look at it. So if I can get mine's working, I already reported that the space safety mines wasn't working properly, but if I can do that and get it tested, then I'm going to start to consider, well, maybe I'll use it, and maybe that's the desired effect. Maybe the effect is that you just want people to spam that other ability less, and if that's the case, all right, then mission accomplished. If not, you got a whole different problem. So but they're saying you're going to protect the nearby buildings from 56% of the water damage, maxed out G metal, of course, and reduce enemy attack and defense to 25%. Area of effect is increased by 294, so it's got nice big range. And for comparison, I got a FFD on the opposite side. So it's smaller, but I think that's fair where it's at. I know there were some calls for it to be larger of a range, but it's not bad the range this got. Hey yo, homie Cheeto in there. What's going on, Cheeto? Thanks for joining, buddy. Highly classified made the comment that make water bots if this is the case. And dude, thank you for that comment because I have been on this whole thing about us having just lots of different elements and kind of having a rock paper scissors thing with the elements. We haven't gone in that direction as a game, but wholeheartedly support getting more elements. I'd love to see more ice. I'd love to see more water. Low key, I'd like to see more electric, but that could be problematic. So I understand them not doing that. You know, um, but man, like if you're gonna build something like this, like don't just build it to stop one bot. Build it to stop multiple bots. Maybe instead of giving the bot that we got for this endurance event, maybe they could have made that a water bot. Who knows? But if people saw that this was coming out and then saw the water bot, they might not go for it at this point. So I think this is premature. Um, I, for one, and I said this on stream multiple times, I think that God Neptune and Ruination, um, we built them too strong in playtest. I mentioned that in playtest. Most of the testers agreed that was just good content, and that as we increase in difficulty, it will be fine. But it's taken us like a quite a bit of time to get to phase three. Phase three, the space ape is telling us it's supposed to be transitionary. It's not going to be major, major, major overhauls here. So I don't know. Um, I do think that with like I was talking to my buddy Chris Harmon earlier, and we was talking about God Neptune and he was saying in the front loaded bases, he was kind of it was kind of messing him up a little bit. And I was like, yeah, I mean, he's not that strong in that regard. He's strong in attack. So if you can take out some of the stuff first, that's the conversation we were having. But so I mean, there are some negatives there, but not a whole lot when it has that much attack power. So now you got this. Um, but it also dilutes everything, man, because like when you go and look at build bots, you only have a handful of build bot cores. Now, at one point in time, before we had other methods of healing, everybody was using a bunch of these zone heals in the back, and some people still do, just in case. It's kind of a backup plan. But then you get ray blockers, and people who wanted to use that. I personally don't use these. I honestly thought the idea was kind of stupid, just because people were, it's kind of like an overreaction that everybody's using double healers. Double healers aren't really needed because you got healing all over the game through combat bots and power cores. So I don't, and which, by the way, this doesn't affect. So for me, is I don't use this word often, but for me, is I'm not gonna say it's useless. The one time that I find it very useful is like for me, I use junk heap as my healer. So to not be able to use his ability because of this is one thing that I look at. But other than that, like we just don't have. I mean, you don't have that many hackers in the meta anymore, so high frequency suppressor is not really used. I actually want to talk about lightning rod a little bit later because uh, I did find a way to go around using lightning rod, but people primarily use that as a way to stop some of the damage from octo punch and sea spray. So every time we build a build bot core, you're basically building it to stop one, maybe two bots. And I don't know, just to have the build bot just be the counter for everything. To me, it's kind of ridiculous. So it's what it is, though. So of course, along with that, if you guys hadn't been noticing, I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 outposts. So they Space Ape is saying we are going with that fifth outpost. Now I'll tell you what, I wasn't really high on it. I would have rather see another MDS. It but this is but then I kind of fell back on it because this is one of the things that gives you more flexibility in the game. It actually changes the way that I approach my base build, and it changes the way that I approach everything. And so what I did today is, and that's I'll actually talk about what I was just mentioning earlier on the I'll run the base trial, because one of the things I was looking at was I just kind of threw this base together today. I'm not really done fine tuning it yet, but I started trying to build something where it was a lot of attack power up front, and then the back is gonna be, you know, based off of getting the MDS to hit after trying to avoid multiple layers of hacks, stuff like that. It's probably going to need quite a bit of work, but that's where I started out with. But one thing I started looking at is if I go try to use Octo Punch here and I put like Run Amok up front, this primary part of his ability is to stop stun, and then while he's invulnerable for 10 seconds, you got to wait that 10 seconds out, so it allows you to take some damage up front. Um, I think that's huge, and I think that it saves you potentially the use of a lot lightning rod uh, Billbot core, at least in the initial seconds. You can see how much damage it did to bludgeon up there up front. So I do like that concept, but I also, like I was saying earlier, the Billbot cores. I mean, you bring them in there for a short time period, for a meta or two, and then the meta changes, and it's like you don't use half of that stuff anymore. But one thing I do like is about having a fifth outpost is there are lots of base designs that I built it didn't allow me the opportunity to put a outpost bot in the middle, and so now I can have two up top protecting there next to my cluster. I can have two on the corners, and I can have something in the middle now. And when I actually started playing it, I actually enjoyed a bunch. So we got that, and everything else for the most part, we got most of the other stuff that we were already gonna have. So we're gonna have that upgraded MDS, gonna have crazy building health and pretty solid damage per second. I know some folks in testing weren't necessarily on board with that. I actually don't mind. The problem is that you're gonna have to do some monster combos there in that regard. Um, so we're still gonna have that. Gonna have six spider mines. You're gonna have six stasis mines, which honestly, that's a concept that we probably should have ran 2 years ago when SAC was real prevalent. Um, and it's still gonna help now. But for me, when I make a base design, kind of like the one I made here, where the outsides are exposed, then that's going to be something that I start to move around and kind of use so that I don't have, like, if anybody still wants to try to use the cup technique or something like that, or the dead end technique on the base, uh, that I give myself some opportunities to catch them out there on the outside that I left open. So from that regard, that's why I started running a bunch of them high. So let me see what's going on in the chat. Yeah, highly classified says not a ruination counter. Yeah, man. I mean, they trying, and like you said, make water bots if this is the case. Um, Mario Zambiano says same thing I said. It's pointless core, uh, and just nerf God Neptune and ruination. And the thing is, man, it's tough. Like you're gonna have some guys like they already made the one change to the like the HQ and everything, and you got some people that was pissed off about that, even though very much can still use them in solo bases, using God Neptune and Ruination. Um, Nerf is one of those things, even when it's necessary, man. The backlash that they get from the community, you know, and I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but is it one of those things that winds up being worth it? It's tough, man. It's tough to go in there and say, "Hey, man, we got to make the call." But like I said, I warned them when it first happened. When we first built them, I was like, man, y'all pushing the barrier a little bit too hard." Now they started off, he was incredibly weak, and then we kept improving him, and I was like, we found a happy medium. I was like, "Whoa, we probably should stop there," but um, we got what we got now. As Cloasi says, "I'll just shoot the build bot with blue streak before I drop ruin." I mean, people doing that anyway. I mean, we went through most of the Unicron tournament and people were using Skull. They were using Scully and Warpath like crazy. Um, Wild Rider and Blue Streak, um, Breakneck. They were using these guys to just clear out build bots. So I mean, for those of you to use those bots for those purposes, you're not going to be affected. It's not going to change. But that's one of the reasons why I was like, the build bot thing's just not going to work. Yeah, and then we got a couple of comments about talking about who uses water. I mean, Beachcomber uses water. I think that's more of like a passive. Um, we were also talking about Sawtooth is using water. It's not a lot. It's not a lot going on. As far in regards to water in the game. Candyman says use water pistol combats. Dude, I mean, like honestly, you laughing about it, but it's something that could be worth a damn. But you got to see how people react to this. I don't know if anybody's gonna use this. I don't think it's worth my time, to be honest with you. I'd rather use a bunch of FFD and stop warriors from running wild all over the place. Okay, so you're saying that's not a real water effect. So being a Decepticon, I haven't really used Sawtooth since testing, so I don't even. I wouldn't I'd have to go test that myself. I see Grim Studios joined in here as well. Let's see, Big Blade. So thanks for joining, Grim. And yeah, Big Blade loves the fifth outpost. King Grimlock says fifth outpost is a counterbalance to time increase. Level 70 ranks are now worth pursuing. And I agree with that. Yeah, Soundwave says they either need to make defense better or bots overall worse to make things feel really challenging and rewarding. And the problem is, and we've been running into that a lot when trying to balance bots in playtests lately. And the problem is, we don't want to push boundaries that much offensively right now. I mean, at least from a Space Ape, from their standpoint, um, they're just really, really cautious about making anything overpowered right now. And the problem with that is a lot of these bots. I mean, when the new bots come out, it's usually during a big event that you're paying money for. So people are going to paying money. They want to see good content. So that leaves you with, if you want people to continue paying money and you want people to feel challenged, the only way they can go about it is they have to push defense. Now, for me, that could mean a lot of different things. That could mean that you rotate the war effects regularly, like I've been saying all the time. Now, for some of the top players, if you got a lot of the bots, the counter argument is going to be like, well, when they change war effects, I'll stop using this bot. I'll start using this bot that I already have and continue winning. But there's going to be a handful of people that are just they're gonna struggle with the war effects, and that's why when they were changing war effects like once every month or two, uh, it was really challenging during those times. But I think it also drove a lot of people away from the game because they just got frustrated. They say a player had two straight sagas where they didn't catch on to the war effects, then people were leaving the game in drones. So and that's the other good point too. Zori is he's got a rock ability, and I warned this back then was Fabian that was the developer, and I warned him then. I say you should make sure that you keep Sawtooth and Zori as the exact same element because it could become a factor later on. They was like, nah, we're gonna do it like this, and I was like, all right. And then here we are, where they're not able to make him true water because the other one has a different ability. I see Razorhorn74 joined us. Thanks for joining, Razorhorn. And all right, so let's go take a look at this new Mindwipe that we got. And Autobots, you got Cosmos. All right, so this is where we're at right now. This is still subject to change, but this is what we're looking at for. So I already had my 4-star at the captain level, so these are the stats that you're looking at with captain. Um, Maxed out 5-star, level 70. Um, Very good damage. I'll actually go do the test I always do. I'll go run the fracas test, knowing that he's gonna give you nice boosts. And so with that bump, that 32% bump from fracas, we looking at 1,252.7. damage per second. They'll kind of put you in a neighborhood. Like I always like to go back and do the test. That puts him over, well, that puts him right at about where Acid Storm is without a combat. So, uh, good damage there. Um, with Captain, he's got decent health, but overall his health is it's okay. I mean, he did get a health bump. I want to say it was like 4.5 to 5K. They gave him a decent little health bump when they moved him up to uh, the 5-star version. But of course, it's all about the abilities, right? And so this one, he's still gonna float in the air. He's going to do this for 20 seconds. But a couple of things they added. Now, this one I was really persistent about wanting. I wanted a life steal for him. So they gave him 100% life steal for the damage done. But he's also going to fire disc. He's going to, instead of just firing just his normal kind of hack beam, is actually going to bounce to one additional target. So one of the biggest drawbacks and one of the reasons that a lot of people aren't necessarily interested in Mindwipe is a outpost bot. We're talking about defense for a second, and one of the reasons why people aren't really interested in him is because he's single target. You know, when you look around in other parts of the game and you start looking at hackers, you know, you got Dirge, who does it in that area. When we had this conversation in playtest, you know, he does it in the area. Um, so when you think about hackers, you know, he's one of the better ones at it. Um, when you go look at a bot like Deluge, recent bot, you know, obviously there's other reasons to like Deluge and Beachcomber, but you know, for him, he does his hack in an area. Now, granted, his is not very long, and his has to, you know, he cast it on an actual item, so it makes it kind of difficult for him at times. Um, it is in that area. When you go look at where I got him at, that's that my name. Let me go. When you look at a bot like Bombshell, so his ability might be single target, but he's also got an awesome G1 that allows him to do some passive hacking as he goes along through battle. So all in all, what I'm saying is the single target stuff is not ideal for most players. Grim Studios says made a point that I agree with, and he says we need more hack bots, and I think we do. But the problem is, I almost wonder if Space Ape was scared to make too many hack bots, and then that's all you see on defense or something like that. I'm just speculating. That they didn't say anything. I'm just saying on my own free will that I wonder if that's the case. So let's take a look at this dude in battle, see what he looks like. Now see Ninja Squirrel 30 jumped in here with us. Good to see you again, buddy. As far as timelines for the 5-star batch, dude, honestly, the first time I heard anything about it was in the newsletter today. I'm not really sure, but generally speaking, what I've seen in the past is, you know, they'll run this thing, and Space 8 probably said it before. I just don't keep up with dates, man. I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm a stuff comes out when it comes out guy. I know that they usually let the poll run for about a week or two, and then once we know who wins, you know, probably within that next week that we start testing. So I would start looking for these dudes. They try to do them like once per quarter. So I start looking for them probably around June, if I'm taking an educated guess. And then Escalahasi made a point when I was talking about Bombshell and Perceptor that they got a double DPS too, so that is a good point. Alright, but let's take a look at Mindwipe Cosmos for you guys on the Autobot side. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to choose my closest target and watch this hack beam carefully so it hits the laser, but it also hits that Spider-Man, and then as you go along, it just hits multiple targets. So it's going to hit 2 targets, which is a good thing for sure. Now, one thing that I perceive to be negative is that you are losing opportunities here for to use your shield. And I think the concern is we don't want to make it overpower. It's got a life steal. Uh, but I will be honest with you, and I said this last week on a live stream, that that shield for him in this particular case, and then we had done the shield thing to death for other bots, but that particular shield for him, I feel like I feel like it's borderline critical. And the thing is like one of the things Dale was reminding us, he said we are gonna get a G1 for this dude at some point, and we got to design it. So keep that in mind. And I think that's kind of made us not kind of go all in on this. Me personally, I was thinking about, because I like the shield that much for him, and I'm not like a just throw a shield at everything type of player. But for him, I think it was critical because he just floats around in the air and because everything is able to, to hit him. So it was 2 ideas that we discussed, and one of them got shot down. So the one that got shot down was giving him some kind of invulnerability. That's just basically being talked about as being outrageous. My response was that if we are going to not make him invulnerable per se, but if you give him like a stealth mode, that means he can still be attacked by like AOE attacks. Because you won't be able to, if he has stealth, you won't be able to directly target him, and that'll make him great in the outpost. And then you can give him his shield, and in either of those 2 scenarios, you could reduce his life steal down from 100 to balance around it. Because I do think when he's just floating around in the air helplessly, I think you do need some kind of regeneration. So, but let me know in the chat what you think that Mindwipe and Cosmos need. Let me know. And I'm going to take a look in the chat right now. So, let me scroll up some because I had a couple of people comment on Mindwipe. Let's see. So, Mercenary Terry said Fracas on Mindwipe is someone who joins, who makes combos. A lot of the best. Oh, not the best. Yeah, I always go. So here's what I do. I always go regen first when I build my team. So for me, uh, you know, I already use Singe on. In this case, I'm using him on Cutthroat. I use him with my Quintus pairing. So anybody else that I need to heal with, I'm probably using some version of Fracas. In this case, just demonstrating, but yeah. So and it just for me, it really just depends on what it is I'm using. Now I wouldn't Singe. I'd usually use, and that's pinpointer for you guys on the Autobot side. Typically use with the Quintus core, so I only use one of those on my team. I also Singe and pinpoints will also make you creep forward, which is not something that I want Mindwipe doing because of he's a little bit limited health wise. Like I got him up there at captain and maxed out 5-star, but I don't want him to get himself into trouble, which is one of the major drawbacks with Singe. Now, if I was going to throw Quintus on him, then I would be all for it. And I see Tony B joined this. Thanks for joining Tony B. So let's see. Oops. And I just closed the chat by accident. Let me open that back up. But yeah, man. So I think that Mindwipe is. I think Mindwipe needs one of those two things that I described um, for him to be viable at all levels. And I'll be honest with you, I feel like we're just kind of making changes to him just because we know that he's going to be in a Legacy Batch event. And I feel like when you go in the Legacy Batch, it's like you got to change something. Um, but I was like, they're not going to give him an AoE hack or anything like that, which, so they went for the Ricochet instead. And it's okay, but I say at the end of the day, because he just floats around there, you want to address itself. So I think it's either stealth. I think you either do stealth or you do a shield with a life steal. And those are little simple changes. You get a 5-star, and there's another reason why that 5-star becomes important too, that we'll talk about here in a little bit. But there you go. See, right there, you get Blades come out there doing this thing, and Blades would have hacked my whole team if they would have stayed in that area. And that's the one thing they was like, well, if we're gonna use a hacker, use him. He's better at it. So yeah, and then we got the question: is there a big difference between 4-star Mindwipe and 5-star Mindwipe? I can actually show 4-star. I think I got 4-star maxed out as well, so I can show him on the screen for comparison's sake. But yeah, somebody already said in the chat he's gonna be stronger as a 5-star. But I guess seeing is believing. So stat wise, if you want to take a look at it, then one of the things that you can look at is this 4-star here. So yeah, that's what I'm saying. I pretty much hit the nail on the head. It's about 4.5 more K health. Um, you're coming up on just around 100 of the DPS. So yeah, it just depends on what you've already got. I haven't decided if I'm like. I don't think that I'm gonna wind up using them in the outpost, but I could. I actually been playing around a lot with outpost bots. So, and there's so many of them. I told you guys we were going to talk about them earlier. But for me, it really depends on what it is that I'm doing. Now, I'm not going to rate the outpost bots per se. Um, Primarily, like I don't want anybody trying to use my word as the gospel. But I will say that there are some that I like better than others, and I like them in different situations. And so for me, one that everybody uses, these days, not everybody literally, but Quellagon and Twin Twist, people use a lot. I'm actually starting to back off on them a lot, as saying that that's a must-have for defense. It is really good, but for me, it's easy to stop because I just rush in with Ironhide and Bludgeon, you know, um, or if you're using Headstrong or Pipes or any of those guys that had like the 80% health boost, and they're just gonna stand there, and all he's gonna do is chew away at the additional health, uh, because his defense is, what is it, 20 seconds long? Yeah, because his ability is 20 seconds long. You got to look at how long you can withstand. So for Bludgeon, his ability is 14 seconds long, which is, you know, I can deal with him for 6 seconds, or in the case of my team, I can actually go send Run Amok in behind them to kind of take over and take the rest of the damage. So it works well. Big Blade 297 asked, could I put Mindwipe on an Outpost and try to run snipes test? I'm gonna keep it a band with you. Like, I'm not gonna do that, and the only reason why I'm not gonna do that is because that's been the entire discussion in the playtest. So we got, at one point we had it where if you were using the breakneck smoke screen, that he was killing him in one shot. It takes him 2 shots to kill him. And that's where we're at. It might change, but yeah, it takes 2 shots from break to take them down. And so some of the testers were saying uh, they thought that was too easy, but there's just so many ways to beat this dude, man. Like, now that you got Lancelot and Buzz Strike, you already had Rat Trap and Vertebrake. You got some options out there on how to not get hacked, and you got holograms that you can use. So there's a whole bunch of different ways. But yeah, to answer your question, it takes 2 shots. Yeah, and I say is we talked about that ad nauseum. It's like, and it's like, it's just the one thing they just kept talking about. It was like, well, Breakneck can take them out. Well, I mean, and granted, they're popular, Breakneck and Wild Rider, and all those guys. But yeah, so it's 2 shots. Mario Zambiano asks, how many shots do I think is fair to kill him? I mean, so let's look at the bot, right? Now that I'm willing to do, let's go take a look at the actual bot. So I'm going to use Breakneck and Smokescreen for the example. So people were getting upset in playtest. Well, not upset, but they were just like, well, he can take him out in 2 shots. You think that's kind of cheap? This is what his ability does. His ability has that huge increase to bots. If you're using against a bot, it's only doing 2,936 if it's a building, unless that building falls below 40%, then you do like an execute shot. But his ability is to snipe bots and give you more power against bots. So essentially, we're condemning this bot for doing exactly what it's designed to do. Um, So yeah, I mean, it's an air class bot. We're not going to give him crazy health, and this is where you kind of get stuck. This is why I think a stealth would be awesome, because he'd become untargetable, but you could still use AOE. So you might not be able to use like a breakneck during his ability, but you could use say a knockout and skids, for example, and his ability does additional damage to bots, outpost bots. So and it will wind up doing now. It will wind up doing roughly the same amount of damage that Breakneck would do in one ability use. It would just take him 10 seconds to do it. So those are the kind of things that I think about, and I think that's fair, because even though you couldn't target him, you can target anywhere, and you'd be fine. So that's what we're kind of looking at there. Um, but yeah, as far as outpost bots in general, like right now, I'm working on this is my test server account, but I'm working on Deluge. I think I got him at like 65 or something right now. But even he can be kind of hard to use, because if he casts somewhere that the bots aren't near, they won't get hacked right away. And he's still got some other bugs going, so I want to use him at some point. But he's also got like over 70k health when he's maxed out with the captain rank, so I like that. I like Nemesis Prime a lot. Now, right now, I'm testing out using him on the bottom. But a lot of times, what I do is I drop him right here in one of these spots. I drop him right here in one of these spots by the MDS. So I might actually swap them around tomorrow. Like I said, I'm still testing this out. But then I started looking at things I can do up the middle. And one ability that I really liked, that I was using on defense for a while, was Terramanders and Top Spins. And the reason why I like that ability so much is because dude, it sticks to everything. Like if you fly a bot over his cloud, like that bot's gonna that air class bot is gonna get stuck with his ability, cloud sticking to him. It's 17 seconds long. It reduces enemy damage by 60%. I'm actually surprised more people aren't using it. You know, if I'm gonna be honest with you, I'm surprised more people are not using that. Um, as far as other outpost bots, I mean, like a lot of your rush tanks, if you don't have anything else, just you can use a lot of those guys just to keep people held up in place. Like in a setup like I'm using here, like I said, my goal is to try to do as much damage up front as possible. Like in this case, like run amok, he's got that 10-second uh, invulnerability period. So you're gonna get some shots in because you can't get past him. If you use like when I was using Terramander, you're gonna have reduced damage while you're in that spot. And I've got Growl on him, who's got that invulnerability period for 10 seconds. You're gonna be stuck fighting him, and you're gonna be getting shot at. So those are the kind of concepts that I look at defensively. I also, but Mindwipe, I thought about using him, but I just can't find a way. Not the way that he is currently. Um, but it's because there's so many good outpost spots up here. T2 Megs and Optimal Optimus are pretty good when you use a golden disc and when you rely on that passive ability. So they're pretty high on my list. Plus, they got the little the ice passive, and they got the go back in time as a result of the golden disc. So they got like a little mini vector effect. So that works really well. Let's see. Man, there's some good ones out here, man. So back in the day, I actually used Soundwave a lot with the G1, so that you can just all the minions would just stun you the whole time. So if I was using, and see, one of the things I like to do, I like to use similar concepts. Like if I'm gonna use something where I'm using hackers, I probably use multiple methods of hacking, so that I probably gonna use Computron and Lyle Kaiser for the combiner. I'm going to use that leech core on defense, and I'm going to use them all in different areas. I'd use like a dirge, for example. I'd use multiple hackers so that you can't just avoid just one. But I actually just took Scourge off of mines. Um, him and Swoop, they can be problematic, but at the same time, um, I just it just depends on what I was using. I started using a lot of hacking, and what I found myself doing is stunning while the bots were hacked, which is counterproductive. So I wound up taking them off because I could have moved them around to, it didn't make sense to stun. But and that's one of the reasons why I was like, if I'm gonna stun a bunch, I'm probably gonna stun throughout. Mercenary Terrier said, "Stop talking about T2 Megs. I heard enough. I wasn't gonna go too far. I was just talking about Outposts. But yeah, they just But yeah, man, that's why I say I was just looking around at different Outpost bots and stuff like that. Um, but yeah, that's the ones that I want to use so far. And there's a couple that I'll probably look at if we get to the point of making some of these bots 5 stars. Uh, I have to see how it goes. Like I could definitely see if they gave like a center twin like a good buff, I would probably use I would probably use him if I was using something where I was looking at just all speed reduction, reduction, damage reduction type. So yeah. So, and some of you guys already talked about it, but let me know in the chat, who do you want to see in the next 5 star batch? And I'm gonna go through some of my picks. And I see LJ Gav has joined us. Thanks for joining, buddy. As well as McLovin, one of my members. Thanks for joining again. But yeah, man, I see some folks still talking about Mindwipe. Says he works well. So LJ says that he works well on outpost duty. And yeah, he does. And one thing I didn't mention when we were talking about him is this: a lot of people were concerned about the game economy because if you try, a lot of people try to go power level on event weekends, and this is the one dude that can kind of stop you in your tracks when you're trying to do that if they put them near the HQ or anything like that. Um, so it just depends on who you're trying to level. Me personally, I just use my combiner, so it's not gonna bother me regardless of what he does. But for the people that try to just rush to HQ, um, but then they also have combats for that, so I'm not overly bothered by it. And I see Gerard Price has joined the chat. Thanks for joining, Gerard. And I see the people starting to talk about what they want in the 5-star batch. And I see LJ says he wants Rampage and Vortex. So, and my playtest buddy Jakeda made this, and I've shown it to you guys before, but he made this combiner chart. And I always talk about this when I talk about 5 stars because one of the things that you want to look at is the existing combiners and how they match up between their Decepticon and Autobot counterparts. And so, what I'm starting to look at is certain bots, if you pull them, may drive other bots to being pulled. So, for example, Ninja Squirrel wants a 5-star tracks. Now, tracks and Cutthroat have not been a part of any vote that I've seen since we had voting. I don't think I've ever seen them on a vote, and I don't think I've ever seen Dead End and Cup on a vote. But I tell you this, if you look at Defensor and Abominus, and you look at all the bots we have, so we don't have Streetwise and we don't have Center Twin, whom I already like a bunch. Um, I just think there's got to be something done to address their health. But if, for me, and this is just me speaking, I would vote for Center Twin and Streetwise because two reasons. I actually like the bot. It's probably going to drive a rework, and the ability of an ability I already like. So I'm probably going to drive a rework of the bot to make him even better. He's got a 22-second long ability, man. So um, I like that. But then that completes Defensor, which means whenever they go to do a 5-star Defensor, they have to do a 5-star Abominus, and that could potentially drive a 5-star Cutthroat because it will be unfair if they didn't. So that's one way we could go about it. But yeah, right now we just talking about bots that I wouldn't mind seeing in there, and bots that you wouldn't mind seeing in there as well. So that's one of them that I'd like to see, and I just gave you my reasons for that. Um, so going back to the combiner thing again, if we went in same concept, if we went over to Skyrim and Galvatronus. Now this scenario is more plausible to me because this is one of the combiners that is more recent. Like, last year's combiner was God Neptune and Ruination. The year before was Skyrim and Galvatronus. So this is one that's still usable in wars and on defense very heavily. So you've got Skylink's Hound, Wheeljack, and Smokescreen already is 5 stars. I like Exhaust and Trailbreaker quite a bit, but as it was mentioned earlier, I think Big Blade had said earlier that these guys, Trailbreaker is a Skyrim piece, but Exhaust, obviously the counterpart from the Decepticon side, is not a combiner piece. Now, keep this in mind. We just got finished talking about 5-star Mindwipe, right? Mindwipe is going to become a 5-star soon. So my thought process is that if Mindwipe is becoming a 5-star via the Legacy batch, if you vote for the bot that I like, would be Exhaust. So if I voted for a 5-star Exhaust, as a result, does Space Ape have to go make a 5-star Cyclonus? And when they do have a 5-star Cyclonus, does that mean that he gets the massive rework that he probably deserves? And I think the answer to all of those questions is yes. So that's what I'm thinking there. Exhaust is a bot I like. I actually got a buddy of mine that can use him really well as a 4-star. So I think it's a pretty good bot. I know everybody's going to ask me the question, would I use him in war? Possibly. It just depends on what kind of team build I got. But it is something that works very well for protecting an entire team, especially after they reworked the radius of his shield. So he could be on my list as somebody that I would not mind seeing win a vote. Then, of course, like LJ was saying, for combiner picks, there's no bigger combiner pick than Rampage and Slug. Just so, but what I would hope happens is that it drives a rework of Predaking. If hopefully if everybody made that pick, that would drive the rework of Predaking, and they would just reevaluate all of his abilities so that he could catch back up. So yeah, so those are the ones. Now, just personal picks, nothing about combiners. There's 3 of them that I really really like. So I'm gonna take the combiner stuff off the screen. I'm gonna go back to the battlefield, and we'll talk about my personal picks just because I like the bot, no other reason. Alright, so the first one I'm going to look at is a warrior class bot. And we only got as a 4-star, and so that would be Breakdown Prime. I just want to see Ice, man. I want to see Ice come into the meta. He can do all the stuff that my other Rush warriors can do. But there is a problem that comes with that, and the problem is people can be like, "Oh, I've already got Headstrong, I've already got Pipes, or I've already got Ironhide, I've already got Bludgeon." You know, primarily it's going to be the I've already got Headstrong on Pipes thing, so people might not be encouraged to power level them. But I like it, and I like that he does nice little slowdown. It's 66%. I I like speed up and slow down abilities. I really have started to like slow down abilities lately. This could be something that can work well in many different capacities. So if there was something that I want to see personally, Breakdown Prime, and excuse me, I didn't say the Autobot version, but Bulkhead, those would be 2 bots that I would pick. We already mentioned this one guy a couple of times, and it's probably overdue. But if we made Skywarp a 5-star, that would be cool. He's going to be very, very powerful if that's the case. So I can't see it happening anytime soon just because he's, you know, he'd be really, really strong. Now his health would be really low, but damage wise he'd be really strong. So that's one I wouldn't mind seeing. And you guys know I've been pushing for air class bots. And I'm actually, and as I keep telling Grim that I was gonna put this video out, and I already got it built, so I need to go edit it. But after playing with Cicadacon, I actually wouldn't mind seeing Cicadacon. So That's some of the ones I wouldn't mind seeing. But we're starting to run out of good bots that we. I mean, because Legacy Batch is running some, and there are some bots that I just want to run through Legacy Batch, like because they're gonna get that massive rework. Like I would like to see Viper go into Legacy Batch because I don't want to go put him into the regular batch, vote him into a batch, and he comes out and he's still not good. I want him to be a side project where he's getting the undivided attention that he deserves. So bots that are good, I want them in as 4 stars. I want in a regular bats. Bots that are not as good, I want them to go into legacy. I want it to be a side project. Nobody's pressuring the apes at that point. I want it to be something a little bit more like that. And with Skywarp and Skydive, they would have to find out a way to figure out um, they would have to go balance the fire and acid thing. But that's an easy rework. But I believe, and I got to go back and through my old footage of when I was doing the interview with Dale. I think he said that those guys are already in the plans for a future legacy batch, or they're on the list of ones they want to do legacy batch stuff with. So, and they said he said that they want to do some reworks for some of the bots that if the Autobot and the Decepticon versions are different. So yeah, and then Big Blade made the comment is low health jet but high damage over time, and yeah, it works. Now Mario Zombiano says if you vote them in the regular batch, it'll be a lazy rework. So it's not necessarily that it's a lazy rework, Mario. The problem is this: when you get in the playtest and you've got a batch and you've got 5 bots that you're trying to work on at the same time, and a lot of times, that means we gotta not level as in play the game to go, but you gotta go just pump each one of these things full of the XP tokens we get, which sometimes we have to go in there and grab ourselves. That actually reminds me, I'm just gonna go ask for a bunch of XP ahead of this so that when the batch comes out, I already got it ready. But you're looking at 5 different bots. You look at them all at the same time. You only got limited amount of time to go look at them. And so for me, there's always every time in playtest, there's always one thing we get hung up on and doesn't matter what it was. So say you put 5 bots in the batch and the third bot in that batch, there's something that people are just really adamant about, and that's where all the debating happens. And then you got 4 other bots in the background. 2 of them are already good, so you're gonna be cool with whatever they get. And then you got these other 2 that need the attention and might not necessarily get it. So for me, one of the things that I look at is if the bot's really, really bad, put it in the legacy batch. Make it a completely separate side project. Let people go into the event and compete for it. And then cool. Hopefully you get something really, really cool. Like that barricade one that they did, even though he was already in a batch. That was a really good rework, and if he wasn't already in the batch, that would have been a really good. That would have been one of those events I would have went for if he was in an event. So, but that's the big thing. It's a concentration thing. If people get really high strung, get really worked up about certain bots, then it takes attention away from other bots. So, for that reason, really, really just terrible bots, put them in the legacy batch, and that'll be a side project. Because usually, legacy batch project is in between other stuff. Like we started working legacy batch after the endurance bot, so it's almost kind of like we're looking at different bots all the time and different combats and stuff like that. So Oh, and I see Scott Sirois is in the chat said I got some great bots there. This is my playtest account. Granted, I do got a lot of good bots on my live account. This is the one they give me just for testing purposes. So, um, but I got good bots on my normal account too. So a lot of times I just come on here and use this account just for demonstrating stuff. But all right, guys, I am going to call it a night. As always, thank you guys for joining. I'll be back on next Wednesday, and hopefully, I got a couple of ideas for some content. So hopefully, I can push some other content out this weekend now that I'm not like stupid busy. And yeah, we'll see what happens. So I will see you guys next week, and I will also see you on the battlefield. Freezy is out. Well, I was gonna be out. I had to change my screen. See you guys next week.